Hi, everyone. Thank you, Humanic, Arjun, for having me and everyone here. This is awesome. I'm going to talk about a slightly controversial subject in the marketing world these days, which is how to win organic growth in the new world of agents and AI search. Real quick intro on me. Matt, I'm one of the co-founders of Airops. I spend a lot of time working on building our team in a AI-first way, answering the question that Arjun presented earlier of how do you build a team that gets ever more output despite flat or declining budgets, but importantly, keeping quality high or even better than it was before. I'm going to do three things in the next 20 or so minutes. One, talk a little bit about AI search, organic SEO, where it was, where it is today. I'll try to avoid any kind of out there predictions and really ground it in terms of what's working and what we know concretely. Two, I'll share some examples of how brands you've hopefully heard of are actually moving the needle and the actions they're taking using a mix of agents, their internal data, and Airops to do that. And then three, I'll quickly go through how Airops works as a platform and how we enable brands to win this channel, and then take any questions you have. I know it's a hot topic generally. So I'm not going to get up here and say SEO is dead, organic is dead. I think the thing that we should all be able to agree on is organic growth as a channel is changing, and it's changing rapidly. And with that, the tactics you need to win, and frankly, the teams and playbooks you need to win are changing too, almost on a week-to-week basis. In the old world of organic growth, the historically lauded examples of people crushing organic with SEO and content, it was enough, and sometimes even the best thing you could do was to reorganize information that was already on your web pages or already on the internet, and that would earn you clicks and it would earn you revenue. The biggest shift, and if there's one thing that you can take away from this presentation in the next 15 minutes, is that with a zero-click world, in the world of AI search, the only thing that matters really and is sustainable is, can you create frontier knowledge? So, what the heck does frontier knowledge mean? This is not a scientific term, but it's what we've learned hands-on with our customers, as information that LLMs don't yet know or can't yet access that answers a user's question. So bear with me on the analogy. For the next 10 minutes, we'll think of LLMs, frontier foundation models, as Pac-Man. Their objective function, their reason for being, is eating the little dots. In this case, the little dots are pieces of information they don't have after they've been asked a question by a user. That information is very specific, and if the agent or the LLM does not have access to information, it wasn't trained on it, or doesn't have access to it on the web, it's either going to return, sorry, I can't help you, or worse, it'll hallucinate. So being able to provide this frontier knowledge, as we would say, is actually the most important thing that a brand can do. So many people here familiar with Ramp. They put out incredible quarterly benchmarking reports on spend of all kind using their best-in-class card data. If you search this in ChatGPT, they immediately reference Ramp's Q1 spend report from 2024. So this is a super specific example, like a high level of investment example in frontier knowledge. But the takeaway is that every organization, particularly larger enterprises, have a wealth of knowledge inside their organization, their customer conversations, their sales transcripts, specific details about how their product works that they might not have thought to be relevant or want to put on the internet are actually the fuel to answer questions that LLMs are being asked every day. Okay, so what else is different about this new world of AI search? One is, in the old world, Google SERP was relatively static. You would see pages ranked number 1, 2, or 3 for years without any refresh or changes, and they would remain at the top of the list of 10 blue links. And Google was the only final boss in this equation. So all of the work, all the effort, everything was designed to optimize to be one of those really top 1 or top 3 links. Today, the rules change daily. And importantly, if your content on your website is 3 months old or less, it's 3 times as likely to be cited. Freshness matters much more for LLMs than it did for traditional SERP. There's also multiple platforms to please, each with their own optimization function. So you're effectively playing 3D chess with a set of models that look very different and have a different rule set than Google did previously. So velocity and experimentation is really important, both with how you set up your team, but also just in terms of the sheer volume of activity you need to do to stay ahead and find out what works. From a team perspective, the old way that SEO used to work, the overhead required to run a best-in-class or even just a middle-of-the-road SEO program involved usually a mix of an agency, one or more agencies. It was expensive, and unfortunately, it only allowed organizations to get at a fraction of the organic growth opportunities. Today, one AI native, super high leverage IC can truly make 10x the impact, and with the right governance, the right systems, the right internal knowledge, both data within systems, but also people in the organization, can have a 10x impact of the Rube Goldberg machine that used to exist before. Lastly, some old world SEO was a mix of art, and there was a lot of creativity, and we believe that creativity should exist in content. But there was an element of sorcery around SEO. It would work, but you couldn't always pinpoint down to exactly how, and you didn't always have an exact roadmap for what to do next. Our vision, part of why we built Airops, part of why we're excited about this dramatic change in this platform shift, is to turn organic into a true scalable performance channel so that everyone here can be confident and their CFOs can be excited about spending money and increasing spend on this channel. So how can brands, how can marketing organizations attack this shift head on? Sort of 4 pieces of the emerging stack from both a technology and jobs to be done perspective that I think are worth noting. But what I would say is that, going back to the main point of this conversation, that creating frontier knowledge is the only thing that matters in this channel. And the 2 things that you need to do to be able to do that are to take action on your content. So create, refresh, engage in offsite, and engage in social. And then have an important layer of context management. Effectively think of this as refining the information, the frontier knowledge in your organization in a way that's safe. You don't want to just plug your CRM into ChatGPT, and also on brand. So the information that is being produced in this new channel still is on websites. Humans still are looking at websites, and the brand and governance rules within your organization matter arguably more now, given how quick and instant and how razor edge the margin on who wins in this channel is. So real quick, 4 ways you can take action. 1 is create well-structured original content. 2, you can refresh the existing content on your website. 3, you can win placement in third-party content, either your partner sites or other sites in the internet that have high authority. And lastly, this one is probably the most in flux, potentially most controversial gray hat, but there's a lot of evidence that it works, is engage. We would recommend appropriately in social conversations on places like Reddit and LinkedIn to improve your visibility. Kyle Poyer from Growth Unhinged, great blog if you've ever read it, did a teardown of Docebo and their organic growth strategy for AI search. Docebo is a learning management platform for enterprises. They have one person on their content team, Valeria, who over the last 6 months or so has built on-brand content pipelines using Airops to effectively automate the work of the same team structure that we talked about previously. She represents this super high leverage IC who has a mix of systems thinking and taste that helps people both manage the brand context needed to create great content, but also create the structures and manage the agents that are used to create and maintain this system over time. And again, they've had a ton of success here. They had their high value lead volume go up about 400% from AI discovery channels. But key to this strategy was actually connecting their content pipelines to internal sales calls and support tickets that help feed the models with questions that they didn't have the answers to before. Wiz is another example. In this case, they were refreshing a large base of content that they had. They needed to create pipelines to effectively refresh their content. They're a little bit earlier on in the journey, but they've been able to move 5 pages of the most important queries into the top 10 in a very short time period. Third-party mentions is an interesting one. This is probably most analogous to backlink strategy in the old world of SEO. One important thing to call out about third-party mentions is you actually don't need a link for it to help drive visibility. So even just a mention in the text of a well-regarded publication can even be more impactful, and it's certainly easier to get as leverage. Carta, in this instance, they did a launch with a lot of their different partner sites. So the ability to have a collaboration of other sites that have investment in your product going to market is a great way of increasing the visibility beyond just your own domain. And lastly, everyone's heard of Ramp. They've really been at the forefront in engaging in social in various ways, finding ways to dominate the conversation in a way that's both on brand and meets the moment there. The point here is that the sub-channels that are emerging in organic are actually happening way faster than they happen in the old world. And given the mix of different models that you have to create and maintain content for, again, the emphasis is on experimentation and speed. Real quick run through of how Airops lets you do this. We've built an end-to-end system for winning organic growth. Taking action, creating content, this is where we started. Frankly, this is the hardest part. It's the part that's most misunderstood, and it's the part that only works, to repeat myself, if you have the right brand governance and context management, the frontier knowledge, if you will, that helps create net new content that performs. And lastly, we're working on building the first end-to-end measurement system so that, again, you'll be able to attach dollars and cents to different actions on content that you should create and refresh. Last thing I would note on the context management system, you can think of this really as a rules engine for larger organizations. As an example, one of our customers, Chime, I think was spending between $5 and $8K on a single piece of content to get it live, given all the overhead that they had to incur, all the handoffs, legal, PMM, brand, everyone wanting a say on how things are worded. What Airops does is effectively you front load brand governance and context management so that the rules are established, you align on canonical pieces of content, and then all of that can then be translated into agents that help the next piece of content that you're either refreshing or creating be on brand and align with the same principles that you aligned on in the first piece. Really important way of driving velocity and letting you get at more of the available universe here to win the channel. The last thing I would say is Valeria and people who have this awesome mix of skill sets of systems thinking and really high taste from a marketing perspective are what we like to call content engineers. And I think there's been a lot of software companies who've tacked engineers onto the end of the title of the role that they're creating. In this case, I think it's actually truly honest. This is a mix of engineering and systems building and taste that when combined together can create extraordinarily high leverage teams and really change the lives of people for whom AI is pretty scary. So we're really excited about this. If you have anyone on your team who wants to learn content engineering, come find me after. Otherwise, thank you for having me. And yeah.
So you mentioned about content needs to be refreshed.
Yeah.
So are we talking about, let's say if I already have 20 blogs on my website, so all those 20 blogs need to be like rewritten, or is it like I have to add new content now with like different context?
Great question. There's sort of layers to it. So some of it might be there's a date out of date. So your fall line needs to be turned into whatever the new quarter is. Sometimes you might have launched a new product or discontinued an existing product. The LLMs will know that based on their information. And then sometimes there's entire sections, an FAQ, a case study, just more depth. And in particular with, I would say, ChatGPT's launch of their commerce offering, the ability to have product pages that have a ton of depth and more FAQ content is actually really important. So that's a really good example of a high value refresh opportunity to add more depth to an existing page. Great question.